Hello YouTube, Alex here with another Freebird Media live stream. This morning it's Wednesday, October 2nd, 2019. This is just going to be a brief stream this morning to talk about one of the Antifa members who we saw harassing that old woman this weekend. I don't believe in doxing on this channel, but his identity is public at this point. Everyone's talking about it and he's addressed it, so I feel that it's within my parameters to start talking about him now. So it turns out that the guy shown here, his name is Alaa Soufi DaLua, I think. And here we can see him with his shirt off and with a mask from a clip from that video of him with the two women that are standing in the street blocking this elderly woman from getting through. So a better photo of him would look like this. So it turns out that this guy here, Alaa, is, or Allah, or however you pronounce his name, is a recent immigrant. He's a landed immigrant from Syria, and he is a prominent Antifa member who is seen in a lot of footage from other independent journalists. So I'm going to throw out some links in this stream to a couple of things just so you guys can do more research on your own. But here's a clip from a channel, Facts vs. Feelings, which you guys can check out. They do a lot of work covering Antifa, and they do a lot of they put a lot of research into their work. So I got to give them a shout out for that. And sorry guys, just let me throw it up here in the chat. So that video, if you watch that video, there's footage there at Nathan Phillips Square, and you can see the same guy, Alaa, here engaging in Antifa nonsense, if you watch that video. And then if anyone wants to send him a friend request, here's his Facebook page. You can try to talk to him. So it turns out that, somewhat ironically, he's come to this country from Syria as a landed immigrant, and now, very recently, he spends his time going to Antifa events and harassing old women in what he calls the name of, anti-fascism. So I find this pretty comical, especially when you find out that this old woman, her family has direct ties to fighting in World War II and stuff like that. They're old. They seem like they've been in Canada for several generations. They seem to understand Canadian values very well when it comes to freedom of speech, and yet this guy here who just arrived in the country has now decided to become an activist and go stand in the street and harass elderly women as they try to enter speaking events. So kind of an interesting detail about him. I see Tim Kelly in the chat. His comment was blocked automatically, but he's familiar with him. So Tim knows him, and yeah, he's been seen at a lot. He's a prominent Antifa guy. Turns out his family has a restaurant here in Toronto, and I'd like to talk to this guy to get his perspective on things, because I have a lot of questions for him. So this afternoon I'm going to try to go down to his restaurant. It's downtown here in Toronto, and see if he's there. Maybe I can talk to him. I'd love to get his perspective on Islamofascism, for example, and maybe get a quote from him on maybe maybe he's being misunderstood here, and watching him wear the black mask and stand there and not do anything while these other women also harass this old woman. Maybe I'm misunderstanding something here, but really I'd like to I'm fascinated by how these people justify their own behavior, so I'd love to talk to this guy. I'm going to go see if I can find him. I think that'd be fun. So you guys, I got a whole bunch of information coming in here in real time as I talk about him. We're working on some people are working on finalizing the identity of the two other women in that video with him, but he's the only one that I think that has been for sure identified, and that everyone else is already talking about. Again, I didn't want to dox him. I saw Derek Rance throw out some of the stuff. He did good work, really good work at that event on the weekend too, by the way. But I don't want to be the responsible for doxing this guy personally. But now that his stuff's out there, you look into this guy and he seems to have an anti-white fetish. That's another thing, a theme with this guy. He's really into being vocal about the native residential school survivors and stuff like that. And again, this is a guy who essentially just arrived in this country. So it seems very hypocritical for him to almost immediately turn around and be part of a counterculture movement to redefine the whole culture. And again, I think that as someone who's been doing this for several years now and had dealt with a lot of dishonorable Antifa stuff and had to deal with the media smear tactics and all that, I do think that it's good right now that we're seeing Antifa take some heat for this. The CBC and all these left-wing mainstream media sources are basically in bed with Antifa because they get quotes through antihate.ca that work with Antifa to basically smear and categorize people, right? So they do that through manipulating language and even the name antihate.ca, right? Really, it's more about spreading hate, in my opinion. But there's a lot of spite in these left-wingers, and I think that we should start calling out Antifa and showing you, like, there's no real empathy in a guy that can stand in the street and scream in the eardrums of an elderly woman. So I don't really think at the end of the day that this is about having empathy for people or anything like that. I think, again, in this case, you have people that have an anti-white bias to begin with, and a lot of other psychological factors that go into this kind of stuff. But, ironically, these people are all here. We're at this event protesting racist Nazis, but I was there. There was no whiff of racist sentiments at all at that PPC event. And ironically, there's a huge amount of racism, I feel, coming from these Antifa types towards white people in general. So I know progressives will scoff at that and say, there's no such thing as anti-white racism. I'm telling you, in a real-world sense, if you go there and there's a bunch of people that are just, being biased against a group of people because they're white, that's pretty much as blatant example of that as I can give you. Tim's saying the guy's sister's Antifa too. That wouldn't surprise me. Different people, they're discussing different ways of dealing with it. I do think that a lot of these people, like, I don't really believe in doxing and I don't want to be responsible for any kind of encouraging street violence or anything like that. But I think that these people, when they cross a line like this, because there's a lot of emotion evoked in it when you watch an old lady get harassed like that, right? And I think that these kind of people, they're going too far now, and they do need to get put, checked in line a bit. Again, you can't just start behaving this way in public. This can't become the norm. So, I do think it's poetic justice seeing them exposed. I'm glad to see it happen. Yeah, I agree with Stan. This guy, I think that if you look into this guy's background, if you look at his social media posts and you look at what he's all about and you watch the video clip I shared, I think he's the racist. I think that's pretty obvious. And that's super ironic considering he's come here because the standard of life is so much better, right? Like, this is a Western culture based on Western values that evolved over time, liberal values like freedom of speech. This guy just got here from a country that doesn't have that, and he wants to now get aggressive with old people about, opposing fascism. He's the authoritarian here, and he's a punk thug. I mean, who I don't even have it. I would never have it in me to harass an old woman like that. So, how just the fact that they're capable of it speaks to, their personalities. Some of the other comments are getting blocked automatically. Sorry, guys, but yeah, I agree with you. Antifa basic. I wrote an article. Please go to freebirdmedia.ca if you're new to our brand. I've written articles there before calling for Antifa to be denounced as a domestic terror group. All of our footage of the street violence and stuff is in that article. Also wrote a good article this weekend about the Bernier event that's got clips and stuff, video clips and stuff in it too. So check out freebirdmedia.ca if you've never seen our website before. And on that note, I'm going to wrap up this stream because I want to keep this one short. But so like I said, in a couple hours, I'm going to go down to this, maybe even in an hour, maybe around lunchtime. So I'll go in about an hour. Watch for us to be going live again because if something happens, I'll go live. Otherwise, I'm going to go down there, try to talk to this guy or get a quote, and then come back and stream about what I learned or put together a video. But watch for more footage still today because I'm going to go try to find this guy. And I just want to do a kind of an update to share some thoughts on him and talk about who he is. So thanks, guys, and I'll see you again soon in the next stream. Take care.